Take two. Senate adjourns plenary till after the presidential and National Assembly elections to reconvene on February the 19th. Army Chief Burutai condemns allegations of lack of equipment and non-payment of allowances to troops. In international news, Indonesia floods, landslides kill 59. And in sport, Super Eagles captain Mikel Obi and Victor Moses signed for new clubs.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. 4 persons have died of Lassa fever in Plateau State barely a week after the Nigerian Army announced the death of a soldier who was attached to 3 divisions of the Nigerian Army, Maxwell Kobe Cantonment, Rukuba Barracks in Jos. The State Commissioner of Health, Kunde Dayi, confirmed the deaths. 16 persons have tested positive of the disease and currently receiving treatment in Jos. The Commissioner says 25 cases were initially sampled out, with 6 tested positive of Lassa fever. He said the state government is putting plans in place to control the spread of the disease, commonly spread by infected rats. The Senate has adjourned plenary. Deputy Senate President Ike Ekweremadu presided over the legislative chamber and adjourned plenary till February, 3 days after the presidential and National Assembly elections. Before adjournment, the lawmakers had passed a bill seeking to increase the minimum wage to 27,000 naira for second reading, but without considering the 2019 budget. The Director General of the Budget Office of the Federation, Ben Akabweze, has confirmed there are no discrepancies in the 2019 budget proposal now before the National Assembly. He said in a statement that officials of the Budget Office of the Federation had met with the Secretariat of the House Appropriation Committee to review the claims by members of the House of Representatives that the budget had discrepancies. The House had said during the second reading of the 2019 appropriation bill on Wednesday it detected some miscalculations in the budget and asked the Ministers of Finance and Budget to reconcile the figures. Chief of Army Staff Burutai has spoken on allegations of lack of equipment and non-payment of allowances to troops. Burutai says the claims are misleading. He said the allegations were part of the campaigns of calumny against the army to dampen the morale of troops on the war front. The army chief urged the media to see through the psychological warfare of the insurgents and their international and local collaborators. Burutai spoke on Thursday at the opening ceremony of the Nigerian Army Conference for Editors at Nigerian Army Resource Center in Abuja. He said the army would remain apolitical as the nation prepares for the general elections, adding that the war against terrorism should be a collective responsibility for all and not just a war between the army and the terrorist group. He also said the war needs to be reported as it is. The media needs to enlighten the people to understand the true situation and support the military. The Court of Appeal in Abuja has ordered the Code of Conduct Tribunal on Thursday to stop further proceedings in the trial of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onohem, pending its ruling on Wednesday, January the 30th. The 3-member panel of the Appellate Court gave the order after taking submissions from counsel in the application filed by the CJN seeking a stay of proceedings at the trial at the CCT. In another ruling, the Court of Appeal in Abuja has affirmed former Governor of Cross River State, Donald Duke, as the presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party, SDP. Duke emerged winner of the party's primaries conducted in October after he polled 812 votes to defeat a former minister, Jerry Garner, who closely followed with 611 votes. But a judge in the Federal Capital Territory High Court in Abuja, Hussein Baba Yusuf, removed Duke as the SDP flag bearer in December last year and replaced him with Garner as the rightful candidate of the party in the forthcoming election. Justice Baba Yusuf had said the party's zoning formula does not allow a presidential candidate to emerge from the same zone as the chairman of the party. A faction of the All Progressives Congress in Rivers State has vowed not to allow the 2019 elections held in the state if the Independent National Electoral Commission fails to put back its candidate on the ballot. The Supreme Court will rule today on the appeal by APC challenging the exclusion from the elections by the courts. The candidate for the elections describes INEC's decision as unlawful and strange. It's saying Nigeria's constitution guarantees the right of political parties to nominate candidates and forbids interference from the courts. And of course, we'll continue to monitor the case and give you updates when the court rules. And still on court matters, the Federal High Court in Lagos has convicted a former administrative secretary of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Christian Nwosu, charged with bribery. Nwosu was found guilty of benefiting from a sum of more than $115 million said to have been doled out by former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Daisy Allison Madueke, to compromise the 2015 elections. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission said Nwosu collected 30 million naira from the funds. Justice Mohammed Idris convicted him of bribery on Thursday. Coming up, African stories. Millions in need of life-saving assistance as attacks rise in Cameroon. And later, international news. Indonesia floods, landslides kill 59, 3,500 displaced.
You are watching ANN.
If you know fit go internet or follow for Twitter, you know fit snap photo send or get it photo send. Now because you dey use Palasa, your phone no dey answer. See wahala. My brother, go get smartphone, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone. Phone wey no go for your hand, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone. Phone wey no fit take selfie. Drop that Palasa phone. No be correct phone, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone.
Upgrade to a smartphone today and get double data for 6 months on any MTN data bundle you buy. Simply purchase a smartphone from any store, anywhere in Nigeria, or bring your current smartphone from any network. Insert your MTN SIM card to start enjoying your double data bonus. Offer is open to all new and existing MTN subscribers. Join the largest smartphone movement today.
Make it known for your hand, that's Palasa phone.
We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow the story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In African stories, the United Nations has announced on Thursday more than 4 million Cameroonians, mostly women and children, are now in need of life-saving assistance. This estimate was contained in UN 2019 Humanitarian Response Plan, which seeks $300 million to assist more than 2 million vulnerable persons, more than half of those in need. Only 40% of last year's $320 million needed for Cameroon was funded. The increase was generated by conflicts in the western region and armed attacks in the far north. Central African Republic refugees pouring into Cameroon have also increased the demand for urgent aid. Insecurity and violence in these regions have forced more than 400,000 persons from their homes. More than 32,000 have sought refuge in neighboring Nigeria. 2 more demonstrators have died on Thursday in Sudan unrest that began last month, raging across cities in the most sustained challenge yet to the 3-decade rule of President Omar al-Bashir. A 24-year-old man died from his wounds in Omdurman across the Nile from the capital Khartoum. The second victim, the son of a well-known footballer, had been killed at a protest at a private university in the same city. There were also protests in the eastern cities of Port Sudan and Al Wadarif. A government statement released late on Thursday confirmed the deaths, bringing the official death toll to 30. Riot groups have put the total at more than 40. In Khartoum, witnesses said security forces fired tear gas at protesters in various neighborhoods. Sudan authorities have blamed the arrest on infiltrators and foreign assassins. They said they are taking steps to resolve the country's economic problems. The U.S. Military Africa Command says it has carried out 2 new airstrikes in Somalia against the Al-Shabaab extremist group, but says it will no longer give details on fighters killed or damage done in its operations. A spokesman for the U.S. Africa Command says those details are now up to Somalia's government to share. The new U.S. statement says the latest airstrikes occurred on Wednesday near Jebleb in Middle Juba region, where Saturday's strike announced to be deadliest in months that killed 52 Al-Qaeda extremists called. The United States has dramatically stepped up airstrikes against Al-Shabaab in Somalia since President Donald Trump took office, carrying out at least 47 last year to diminish the Islamic extremist group's safe havens. A lawmaker in the House of Lords in London has called on the UK to recolonize Zimbabwe because of the country's current political and socio-economic woes. President Emmerson Mnangagwa has said he was open to the idea of rejoining the British Commonwealth of former British colonies from which former President Robert Mugabe pulled out Zimbabwe in 2003. Meanwhile, Zimbabwe says the remarks by British Lord Adrian Palmer was regrettable and unfortunate. The government said the call for Zimbabwe's recolonization was being made under the guise of safeguarding the lives of its citizens following last week's violent demonstrations in the country. 6 persons died in the protest and millions of dollars worth of property was destroyed. 1,000 protesters have been arrested. Human Rights Watch says most of the 48,000 former residents of the Libyan town of Taweha who were forcibly displaced for 7 years have not been able to return home. The riot group reports that despite reconciliation agreements that should have paved the way for Tawehan's return, the massive and deliberate destruction of the town and its infrastructure and a pervasive feeling of insecurity have kept all but a few families from returning. The report also says satellite imagery has shown the militia from nearby city of Misrata who control Taweha have decimated the country or the city's underground cables and may have even stolen them. Human Rights Watch also says the militia ensured a systemic destruction of the city to ensure the displaced to be unable to return. The group has called on the government of national accord to devise a strategy to safely return them to their home. It also recommends that the government rebuild the city and ensure security and accountability for militia members and commanders responsible for deliberate displacement and destruction. The group also recommends that international criminal courts should consider possible war crimes and crimes against humanity against the Taweha community as part of its ongoing investigative efforts to address grave abuses in Libya. Amnesty International said on Thursday Egypt's intensified crackdown on dissent has made the country more dangerous than ever for peaceful critics of the government. The report was released by the human rights body ahead of the 8th anniversary of the 2011 uprising that led to the ouster of longtime ruler Hosni Mubarak. Amnesty International says more than 100 persons were arrested last year for peacefully expressing their views. Amnesty International says the space for dissent has been crushed out of existence. Ala Abed, head of the Human Rights Committee in the Egyptian parliament, said early last year that Egypt holds at least 30,000 prisoners in pre-trial detention. When we return, international news. Indonesia floods, landslides scale 59. And later, sports. Super Eagles captain Mikel Obi signs for Middlesbrough.
You are watching ANN.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Madam, go and bring us your husband. Okay, hello baby.
We're in this together, okay? Can you hear me? Keep coming forward.
Wait, stop.
You okay, lean to your right. Keep walking down. Keep walking to the left. Yes.
You're almost here.
Keep going.
You are here. Wow, you did it.
I'm just so glad I didn't have to use my cane to do this.
And I am so glad no other man got you before me. Let me be your eyes.
We will never stop working to give you a network you can rely on so you can enjoy life's special moments. MTN, everywhere you go.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In global news, 59 persons have died and 25 are missing after landslides and floods ravaged Indonesia's South Sulawesi province. Floods have inundated at least 100 villages in the province since Wednesday after days of heavy rain. 5,000 homes and 12,000 hectares of rice fields were underwater, with 3,500 reported have been displaced. Landslides and floods are common in Indonesia during the rainy season, which is expected to peak in January and February this year. A 5.5 magnitude earthquake rattled Cagayan province in northern Philippines on Thursday. The Institute of Volcanology said the quake struck in the afternoon hit at a depth of 24 kilometers, 27 kilometers northwest of Calayan town in Cagayan province on main Luzon Islands. The institute said the tremor, which was tectonic in origin, is not expected to cause any damage, but expected to cause aftershocks. There has been protests in Greece's main cities and on the country's northern border against a historic deal to end a decades-long name dispute with Macedonia. Police said more than 2,000 protesters gathered outside Parliament in Athens on Thursday as legislators debated the agreement reached between the two countries last year, which would see the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia renaming itself North Macedonia. The vote would also see Greece lifting objections to its northern neighbor joining NATO and the European Union. The vote was expected to hold on Thursday evening in the Greek parliament, but was pushed to Friday amid heated debates. Britain's Queen Elizabeth II has asked people to respect different opinions surrounding the Brexit deal. The Queen spoke during her speech at the Women's Institute in Sandringham on Thursday, where she made an annual visit to Women's Institute members near her estate in North Flock. The Women's Institute is seen as the largest voluntary women's organization in the UK, with almost 220,000 members. Observers have said the Queen's intervention was highly unusual throughout her nearly 7 decades on the throne. She has always remained apolitical. The Queen traditionally avoids expressing her views in public in order not to compromise her constitutional role to remain impartial, thereby undermining the position of the monarchy. The United States says it will return the first group of migrants seeking asylum in the U.S. to the Mexican border city of Tijuana on Friday. The spokesman for President Andres Manuel Obrador's office did not specify the nationalities of those to be returned to Mexico, although the policy was aimed at helping cope with rising numbers of Central Americans seeking asylum in the United States. The two countries have held 2 meetings to work out details of the plan to return migrants seeking U.S. asylum across the shared border. Mexico has said it will not accept anybody facing a credible threat in Mexican territory. It is unclear how Mexico plans to house thousands of asylum seekers for the months or perhaps years it takes U.S. immigration cases to be heard. Up next, sports. Super Eagles captain Mikel Obi and Victor Moses signed for new clubs.
watching ANN.
This used to be me. But that was before I got the perfect bag. It's handy and easy to use. All I need in one compact space, just like my MTN Extra Value plan. I used to get one plan for my calls and then try to remember which data plan worked for me. Roaming was a totally different ballgame. Not anymore. I've got the MTN Extra Value all-in-one plan. If you're a data buff like me, you get extra data with some talk time. And if you like to make calls, you get extra talk time with some data. And when I'm abroad, I automatically browse, chat, and call right on the same plan. MTN Extra Value was made just for me.
More of data or calls, whichever one you prefer. MTN Extra Value is made just for you.
Welcome back. This is ANN News and Sports Now. Championship side Middlesbrough have officially confirmed the signing of Super Eagles captain John Obi Mikel on what the club announced on their official website as a short-term deal. Club boss Tony Polo says he's delighted to complete the signing of Mikel, whom he described as a man with a lot of experience and quality. Meanwhile, there are reports that Fenerbahce have reached an agreement to sign Victor Moses. Former international referee Ibrahim Chalbo has been banned for life after being found guilty of taking bribes. The official from Niger Republic was also fined more than £154. FIFA banned Chalbo from all football-related activities, including administrative ones. Too bad for him. And that is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on this and other stories, visit our website, annafrica.net. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a great weekend.